Would you please welcome Google's Chief Financial Officer, Jorge Reyes.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your very hectic schedules to make time with us today. So today we plan to showcase our coming talent in terms of the product managers, but really we're going to drill down on our strategy for search, ads, and apps. I hope you'll find the day very informative. Jonathan Rosenberg will kick off our session with a discussion of our search and apps vision. Then Omid Kordestani will discuss our ads and enterprise business. He'll be joined by members of both the sales team and the product teams to talk about our recent progress in this space. We will also give you some insight into how we think about these businesses and what kind of investments we're making in them. We'll break for lunch roughly around noon, and we will adjourn at 1 o'clock. After lunch, you'll hear two people who are truly internet visionaries, and that's Alan Eustace and Vint Cerf. Eric Schmidt will then share some of his thoughts and insights. At the end of the day, Eric will be joined by me and Sergey for a Q&A session. Of course, as in past years, we will have product demos to offer you, and we will also give you Google tune-ups in case you want to refresh your devices. So also, just as a reminder, there's free Google access throughout the property here without a required password. And if you're having any problems, we have one technician back there that can assist you with all of your computing woes. So with that, I'd like to bring up Jonathan Rosenberg.
Okay, thank you, George. So I always like to remind investors to start their analysis of Google by looking at what we've said in the past, and in particular to the single definitive source document that codifies how we run the business, and that, of course, is the founder's letter. I think it's important to see that we've maintained the long-run vision, the product principles, the 70-20-10 guidelines, and the mission which we set forth in that document. So we've used the past 2 Analyst Days to give you additional deeper insights into our strategy and plans. What I'd like to do is formally welcome all of you to this, our 3rd installment. At the first Analyst Day, back in 2005, Eric, I'll remind you, talked about his vision. At the time, he described what we now all dub today as cloud computing, and how he imagined that we would build out the end-user value proposition that is actually, in fact, the current basis for our business model. Sergey talked about the culture and how we were going to take the culture to multiple offices all over the world. Larry reinforced the need for end-user quality in everything that we did. I pointed out that access to information would be a strong catalyst for growth in online commerce. And Omid set forth the plans for the broader ecosystem and all the partnerships that we would need to develop in order to achieve our strategy. Then you all came back for Strategy Day 2006, and Eric talked about strategic acquisitions. And he talked about the areas of focus at that time, which were search and ads quality, partners, systems and infrastructure, and of course doing all of this with an eye towards a truly scalable architecture. I talked about product innovation, and I talked about the ample headroom for growth we foresaw in the monetization engine. Omid ran a panel discussion of executives. They talked about international growth, our sales strategy, which of course by then we were implementing aggressively worldwide and at scale. In both of those previous Analyst Days, we talked about the immense scope of our opportunity. Our view here, of course, has not changed. If anything, the opportunities created by the growth of the internet over the last 18 months are even greater than we thought they were back then. Just last week on our earnings conference call, Eric said, "We are now on the cusp of a world where everyone can create, share, collaborate, and find their content in the cloud anytime and anywhere." This whole new era of cloud computing has people around the world generating tremendous amounts of new content. And with it, the amount of information on the web, of course, is growing incredibly fast. YouTube, for example, today has 8 hours of video uploaded every single minute. So what does all this mean? Fortunately for Google, This is not an example of Maslow's observation that when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. With all this information out there, it turns out search is even more important than people may have originally thought. What do you know? Search fulfills a basic human need for knowledge. And getting all this new content authored and then indexed in a way that's very powerful is basically going to be a fundamental recursive loop, and it's going to continue to drive search traffic for many, many years to come. It also means that this era of PC-based applications and data is transitioning to one of apps and content living in the cloud. Now users can focus on what they actually want to do online as opposed to which application they need to use. We've followed a path of development across the enterprise and apps efforts that may actually seem random to some of you all from the outside. But if you think about it internally, we're weaving these applications and these acquisitions into a cohesive platform. We've developed a common infrastructure for storage, for annotations, for content, for access control, and for real-time communication. In advertising, and you've all heard this story before, it continues to be very, very robust. We've got an ad network that's large. It produces excellent conversions. It targets ads judiciously. And thankfully, as all of you know, it is, of course, extremely lucrative. It's delivering ads that are highly relevant. They're useful to users. And we're doing all of this even as we scale massively, both domestically and abroad. So these are the basics around which Eric coined the Google Holy Trinity of search, ads, and apps earlier this year. And what's more, at the time, he mandated that we deliver against this strategy in 40 languages across all of our product lines throughout the world. These are still the pillars we're going to use today to communicate our strategy to you. So a couple of weeks ago, we ran a conference here called Zeitgeist. We had a host of amazing people exchanging ideas. Al Gore was here, Bill Clinton was here, Fred Smith was here, John Chambers was here. Chambers told us how he is turning Cisco's organization completely upside down. He referred to it as blowing up his command and control style and replacing it with a flat organization that empowers everyone to act. What he told us was that Cisco's gone from a company where 10 people were empowered to make important decisions to a place where 300 people could make important decisions. And he said that he was hoping to move that to 6,000 people in the near future. Well, like Cisco, here at Google, we push a lot of our product decisions down to the experts, the product people and the engineers at the front line who live and breathe these products every day. When I first came here, I showed up with what people described as the typically Dilbertian senior management big company view that it was my job to quickly dictate decisions by imposing top-down strategy slides. So I started walking around the Google halls and dictating. It was a disaster. The Google patient quickly rejected the Jonathan donor tissue. And I learned very quickly that it was my job as a manager here to aggregate viewpoints and otherwise stay out of the way of the legions of brilliant and smart people who we hire and in whom all of you invest. So Chambers' talk at Zeitgeist reminded me of that lesson, and it got me to thinking, instead of having executives tell you about all of our products, it'd be far more valuable and insightful to have the real experts on these products, the ones who actually do the work and the ones who make up the headcount in that little line in your spreadsheets that relates to employee growth that I know you're all concerned about. So I have not produced traditional, boring MBA strategy slides, though I hope you will all kindly stipulate, having worked with me for the last 6 years, that if I really wanted to bore you with damn good slides, I could. Rather, what I'm going to do is open the kimono a little bit and give you a look inside the innovation machinery led by the people who actually do the work. What you'll see is a format that's very similar to an internal Google product meeting. Rather than going through mind-numbing pie charts and endless bullet points, we put our trust in the experts leading the projects. And we ask them to tell us their vision for the product. And the bigger the vision, the better. How will the world be a different and better place once your vision is implemented? Larry and Sergey always believed that strategically, Google was about solving big problems for large numbers of people. Not small problems, and not even big problems for small numbers of people. So we ask, how will large numbers of people be much better off? The product managers come in and they tell us their insights. What do we know about the market that other people don't? How are we going to approach the product in a unique way that's substantially better than anybody else? What does our internal log data show about the products? Are they growing? Because if they're growing, that's the single best tell that we have that they're going to be successful. At Google, we constantly feed the winners and starve the losers. This is actually the opposite of what you see in typical large GM-oriented companies with big divisions. There, what you often see is general managers desperately trying to shore up the unsuccessful dogs by giving them more resources. Here, we do the opposite. Finally, at Google, we say, show them. As you know, we ship early and we iterate often, because we know that our users are better at discovering uses for our products than we are. These principles also apply to us internally. We don't have people just talk about what they're doing. We have them come in and show the management team a demo. Show me a demo. That's what the founders say. Most recently, we've been insisting that these demos show a more coherent experience. Sergey has adopted a new mantra that he calls features and not products. And what he means by that is showing incremental functionality in the context of a larger Google experience. So who are these experts? The people in whom we're going to put all of this trust. Well, one of the things that I'm proudest of in my tenure here at Google is what we call our associate program. It started as a bet between Marissa and me. What she said is that she could grow good, experienced product managers faster than I could hire them from the outside. So over 5 years ago, we started hiring folks right out of school, and we immediately put them to work on important things. These are highly technical computer scientists with very limited business experience. When they get here, we give them actual responsibility, because we believe that fresh perspectives and real insight trump experience and previous accomplishments. We also know that the associate product managers can't rest on their laurels. Well, like their complacent higher-ups can, because after all, they have no laurels to rest on. Hear that, guys? So they tend to be ambitious. They try things that other people think can't be done because they don't know any better. There's really no way that my staff or I could keep up with what's going on this revolution that we call the internet. After all, if you want to understand social networking, which is certainly a phenomenon that's here to stay, it's probably a good idea to have people working on it that are dating. For the official historical record, I am not dating. So I'm going to let these managers who actually do all the work come and show you what they're up to. The demos that I'm covering are in the area of search and apps. And after our group, we're going to have Omid come up, and his team is going to talk about ads and monetization. So first, we have Jack Manzella on Universal Search.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. So as Jonathan said, my name's Jack Manzella, and I am a product manager here at Google. I'm also a recent graduate from Brown University with a degree in computer science. And I'm here to talk to you guys about the vision of Universal Search. And so when Jonathan told me to do this presentation, I was really struggling as to how I could convey to you simply and concisely what is the essence of Universal Search. What's the vision? And I just couldn't do it until I broke down and I really just embraced my inner geek. And I invoked something which is very close to my heart, which is Lord of the Rings. And so I wrote you all this poem. And so I hope you like it. So here we go. I'm going to read you this poem. OK, Universal Search. Universal Search. One search to index them all. One search to find them. One search to bring them all. And in results, combine them. And while this is really fun to harken back to Lord of the Rings, and it's always great to refer to this kind of really nerdy stuff in my background, in all seriousness, this actually does embody, this poem embodies the three major points of Universal Search. And those are, number one, comprehensiveness. If it's on the internet, Google search, we need to find it, regardless of whether or not it's a video, it's a blog, it's a news result, whatever it is. If it's not in our index, we can't give it to you as a result. Second major point is relevance and ranking. Just because we went out and we found all these awesome images and videos and we collected them all and we indexed them all, it doesn't mean we're just going to dump them on you every time you do a query. What we do is we built this fabulous infrastructure that actually allows us to rank and index every single one of them on every single query. The scalable infrastructure is really amazing. And so no matter how long tail your query is, no matter how obscure, we're going to run it through all of that data, and we're going to give you a set of results which are really relevant to your query. And then finally, presentation. Like once we actually have these results, we give them to you. We actually want to make them actually scannable and efficient for you to find the information that you're looking for. And so that means, a text snippet may be great for a text web page, but it may not be so great for a video. So we're experimenting in that field. So that's really the vision of universal search. But what really gets me going are the demos. So let's hop on over here to this machine on the right here, and let's bring up some actual queries. So here we go. So here is a popular query these days. Here's the query for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a great example for a universal search query because she actually has a whole lot of really good content of different types on the internet. And so let's just look through here and see what we can find. Well, if you just browse through this result page, you see that we have the Hillary web pages. We have a Wikipedia article. We've learned a lot about her platform and all about her. We've now blended in news results because Hillary is a very newsy query. Then down at the bottom, you'll notice we've actually blended in a video result, which is interesting because, while not as relevant, obviously, as the #1 result, which is Hillary's web page, we do think that it's relevant at this point, and it really does make our results more interesting and diverse, because hearing Hillary speak is an interesting telling thing about Hillary. Then finally, we have news archive results, because she's been in the news for a long time, and then we also have searches related to Hillary Clinton, so you can actually explore the space around that area. So that's a great example of how we've taken great care to do a good job of ranking and relevance. Like, there's a lot of different types of content in here, but you really, from reading through this, you don't get the impression that we're just dumping it on you. We get the impression that we've really taken time to focus on just giving you a relevant list of results. So for the next demo, I actually have to share with you guys an existential crisis that I recently have been going through. So I was on Facebook the other day. I was hanging out, and an invite pops up. And it's from my friend Ryan. And it says, Jack, I need you to join in the epic battle between pirates and ninjas. And we want you to be a ninja. I was like, whoa, that sounds intense. I'm enthusiastic, but a little apprehensive. So like any good researcher, I immediately bring up a Google search on ninjas, because I need to learn what does it mean to be a modern ninja. And so I start digging through the web pages, and I find Real Ultimate Power. Ninjas have a great sense of humor, actually, from Wikipedia, that they started in 15th century feudal Japan. But I'm not really getting an impression of what it means to be a ninja these days until I get to this inline video result. And I find these kind of crazy guys in a gym, and they're doing ninja flips. And I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. This is really what it means to be an urban ninja. Oh, they've got weapons. This is great. So what this really shows is how, with the new kind of UIs that we're introducing with Universal, we're able to convey things that a text snippet would not be able to convey. It'd be pretty hard for me to write a 2-line text snippet to say, whoa, these flips, to get how cool these flips are. So let me finish this off with round it out, because we saw the weapons there, and that really struck home with me. I think that I'll need those to be a modern ninja. So I did a query for ninja weapons here. And you see some pretty good relevant results about ninja weapons. Down at the bottom, we blended in some image results. But finally, this is the one that I think is most interesting. And this is actually an entire book result, and we blended this in here. And this really speaks to the comprehensiveness goal of Universal. And it's amazing because you can actually read the entire book here. Whereas before, for me to actually find this book, I might have had to go out to a library, and then I would have had to hope that the library actually had a high population of ninjas, and then they actually had the book. But we've stocked it here, and it's amazing because we've actually brought something online that was not online before, and that really is a great example of how universal search is being more comprehensive. So that's universal search. In my future, it looks like I'm going to have to go work really hard at this ninja training stuff, because I want to be prepared. The future of universal search, well, with this awesome scalable infrastructure that we have, we're really just scratching the surface of what's possible. So what do you expect to see from Universal in the future? Well, you're going to see more result types, so more different types of content. You're going to continue to see it be ranked with the utmost relevance. And then finally, you're going to see it being presented to you in a way such that you can still really be presented with a scannable list. And you do a query, scan down it, find what you want as fast as possible. So that is universal search.
OK, thank you, Jack. Next, we have Jessica.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I started at Google about 3.5 years ago, and I had just graduated from Stanford, where I studied mostly math and a little bit of computer science. And I'll never forget my first day at Google, because Marissa sat me down and she said, you're going to be in charge of the Google homepage. And I was like, I thought we were supposed to have a responsibility. Like, the Google homepage is like a big logo, a text box, and like 2 buttons. I was like, my dog can manage the Google homepage. Like, are you serious? And little did I know how much work that would actually turn out to be. So we realized that people at the time love the classic Google homepage, and so we don't change it much. But we realized that some people want a lot more. And that is why we developed the product iGoogle. Now, when I explain what iGoogle is to people, they always ask me, is this a portal? And I think it's a fair question. I think it's a very fair question. Is this really a portal? I think portal has come to be a very dirty word on the web. And I think it's fair to ask why. The word portal has come to mean not just information on a page, which is fundamentally a good thing, but it has come to mean a walled garden, a site that tries to lock users into their own content, into their own products, and doesn't necessarily give you the best solution. It gives you their solution. Portals don't give you the best games. They give you their games, their news, their email. iGoogle, we wanted to take a different approach. So iGoogle currently indexes over 200,000 feeds and over 20,000 gadgets. It's completely an editorial, algorithmically run product. We don't editorialize iGoogle, and we don't have any philosophy about what users can and cannot put on the page. If you want to put Yahoo Mail on your Google homepage, that's fine. I think that this one single thing, this philosophy, has been the secret to our success. iGoogle has seen tremendous growth over the past few years. Since we launched the product 2 years ago, it's consistently been one of the fastest growing products at Google, and that growth trend continues today. So that being said, let me show a little bit of iGoogle. So it's not really good enough to have 200,000 feeds and 20,000 gadgets unless you can give the users the right feeds and the right gadgets at the right time. So really, this is about search, not about customization. So let's go to iGoogle. So here's our new setup that just launched this morning. And it's entirely algorithmically search-based. So what am I interested in? Well, I'm interested in news. I'm interested in games. Let's select art, technology, and entertainment. And I want a beach theme on my page. So I click See My Page. OK, here's my page. I have an entire corpus of tabs. People think that we choose this stuff by hand. We really don't. It's all entirely run by algorithms. So let me put in my location. So say I'm in New York, and I save that. Notice that the theme on my page actually changed. So the themes on the page are dynamically set to match your local time conditions, and actually the themes time right down to your local sunrise and sunset time. So let's look at my content. So I have news, I have games, I have art. And again, people think that we choose this stuff algorithmically, but we don't. OK, that's not good. So this isn't just limited to categories that we choose. You can actually put in any arbitrary category here. So let me put something I'm interested in, which is astronomy. Notice that says, I'm feeling lucky, automatically adds stuff based on the tab name. So this is where search kicks in. OK. Now I have an astronomy tab where we have the best feeds and the best gadgets. How do we generate this? Well, what we do is we look at our users, and we look at which users have a tab called astronomy, and we look at which gadgets and feeds are most popular on those users' pages. So in this way, we're leveraging the single biggest advantage we have, which is millions of users organizing and creating and customizing personalized homepages. Whether users know it or not, they're making iGoogle better just by using it, by tagging content, by telling us what's important. Let's try another example. So travel. This one's interesting because it comes up with some more commercial results. So you'll notice that there's a gadget here from Priceline, which is simply a booking tool. People think that Priceline paid to be here. They didn't. Users actually find this useful and will add it to their homepage. And so in this way, a lot of companies are creating gadgets and getting presence and connecting with users on their homepage before they even connect with a search. And so you'll hear a lot more about gadgets as a form of advertising in a later section today. Let's try a local search. So let's try San Francisco. This one I think is interesting because it gives me SF Gate. I have food and dining. I have some good gadgets here. I have Bay Area traffic gadget. I have upcoming shows in San Francisco. See what's coming up. Looks like there's an exotic dance cruise. If that doesn't work, it looks like Kid Rock and Hanson are back-to-back at the Fillmore, which is good. And so I can get all my local Bay Area information right here on one tab. It's really easy to organize. Finally, I'm going to show you guys something really cool that just launched yesterday. Sign in here. So this was a tab developed by the Google Finance team that leverages one of our new Gadget protocols, which is called inter-Gadget communication. So the finance team put together this tab. Now, this is basically Google Finance in a componentized structure on my Google homepage. And I currently have a query typed in. So watch this. Say that I change the query. The gadgets sync. They actually talk to each other and intercommunicate. Let me try again. Try a different ticker. Watch that. So in this way, the gadgets actually talk to each other and respond. I can decide which ones of them I want to sync and which ones of them I don't. I think this is really, really interesting and really powerful because with a product like iGoogle, someone can take Google Finance, they can componentize it, they can sync it, they can create a version of Google Finance that exactly works for them. And this is incredibly powerful because the web in and of itself is becoming componentized. It's not just about driving people to your site anymore. It's about getting your content out there, whether that be RSS feeds, whether that be gadgets, whether that be social apps, whether that be tabs of content. And what's amazing about the componentized web is that the sum of the parts is actually greater than the whole. When you take something like Google Finance and componentize it, there's a ton of different ways that this content can be mashed up, can be created, can be personalized. And that's really what we want to do with iGoogle. We want people to have their content in the way they want it and really have their best from the web. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Albert with Trend.
Hi, my name is Albert Chang, and I'm a recent grad of Penn in engineering, and my product is Google Trends. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Trends, our vision for the product is to make our search data universally accessible and useful. And we consider a product like Trends, it really is about tapping into the wisdom of the crowds. And you think about all the millions and millions of people who use Trends, not use Trends, but use Google every day to make their searches. And it's really about having them answer your questions for you. So I'll walk through some examples that really illustrate what I'm talking about. Can I get demo right, please? So here's a screenshot of Trends. So I want to share with you some examples that illustrate the power of Trends, and I'll start with a personal one. So when my wife was pregnant, we were trying to figure out what to name our baby son. And we had settled on the name Connor, but we couldn't figure out how to spell it. So was it going to be C-O-N-N-O-R or C-O-N-N-E-R? And so we sort of went back and forth, and we were asking friends, we were asking relatives, and we just could not come up with a good answer. So what did we do? Went to Trends. So you compare Connor versus Connor here, and you can see Connor with an O-R is clearly more popular than Connor with an ER here. And so, let's see. Let me introduce you to my son, Connor Chang, C-O-N-N-O-R. But more seriously, there's a lot of really good business applications that Trends has. So one example is something that Hyatt went through recently. They were building a hotel in the Caribbean. They couldn't decide whether to name it Hyatt Regency Trinidad or Hyatt Regency Port of Spain. And they could have hired a naming agency and spent a lot of time and money to really figure out what to name this hotel. But instead, what did they do? They went to Trends. And so they plotted Trinidad versus Port of Spain. Trinidad is in the blue up here, and Port of Spain is in the red. And relative to Trinidad searches, no one searches for Port of Spain. So as a result, you can go ahead and book your reservations at the Hyatt Regency Trinidad. It comes online in December of this year. Another problem that companies face is figuring out what to stock their shelves for the holiday season. And this is a perennial problem. And if they can only figure out what products were going to be hot for the coming year. So let's look at how trends would have helped in that problem, for that problem. We look at two products here, American Girl dolls and digital picture frames. These are popular gift items over time. And you can see last year there's a huge spike in terms of searches for digital picture frames. So for those of you who cover retail, you'll know that digital picture frames were the surprise hit for last season. And if you're a retailer and looking at trends, because trends is now updated daily, you would have known as early as October last year that digital picture frames was going to be a breakout hit for the season. So think of how useful and powerful this is for a retailer. The next example I want to show you is something that Nissan actually is going through right now. So they recently launched the Nissan Rogue, which is a new SUV. And you've probably seen the commercials already. They're everywhere. They have product placements on the show Heroes. They have TV advertising, print advertising, and online advertising. But how do they know that they're really making an impact? And how do they know that their campaign really worked? Well, of course, go to trends. And so you see in the red here, this is the Honda Pilot. This is one of the competitors that are going after with this product. And you can see from the searches for Nissan Rogue, it really spiked up right around launch time. You can see that indeed their campaign is working. And so if you're the marketing manager for this campaign, you can go to your boss and ask for more money because you know what you've done is working, and you can put more resources behind it. So I've just shown you 3 examples of how trends is really powerful for businesses. But let's not forget that we're dealing with a ton of data here. And sometimes when you're dealing with this type of data, it's really hard to parse out the interesting insights and create a story from the data. And so we acquired a product called Trendalyzer, which helps apply these visualization techniques to macroeconomic data. So here is a version of Trendalyzer. Each of these circles represents a country. Each of the colors represents a region. And the size of the bubbles themselves represents population. So we'll flip over to the chart here. So what we're comparing here, as you go further up in the chart, it's greater internet penetration. As you go further right, this is GNP per capita. And so let's see what happened to this over time. So in the 70s and 80s, not very many people were on the internet, obviously. But as soon as you hit 1990, boom, you see a huge surge in internet growth. And you can see that across the board. And so really a massive change in terms of usage. And you can look at it from different regions as well. So you can see how in Asia, they're doing pretty well in terms of adoption and also in overall income, whereas a region like Africa, they're really lagging behind, particularly on the income axis. And so we can select particular data points as well. So let's look at India, look at China, and look at the US. And then we'll look at it on a linear scale and see what insights that provides us. We'll play it back over time. So as you expect here, the richer countries are adopting the internet faster. And you can see where they progress over time and where they are right now. And so it's interesting to see places like China and India, who you commonly think of as these huge powerhouses in terms of growth of the internet, adoption of the internet. But if you look closer at the chart, they're really not too far different from Fiji in terms of internet penetration or per capita GNP, or the Ukraine or Panama. And so it reminds us that there's a huge runway of growth ahead of them for these regions. And so I've shown you the visualization power of a product like Trendalyzer. And you think about the data that's in trends, and you combine the two, and you can really think about really compelling information for whatever audience you have and whatever focus area you have. And so I encourage you to try out both Trendalyzer and Trends. Thank you.
OK, thank you, Albert. Next, we have Keith, who's going to talk to you about Gmail.
Hi, I'm Keith Coleman. I came to Google about 3.5 years ago from Stanford, where I did my undergrad and master's in computer science. And since coming here, I've been working on a growing group of products that includes Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Docs, and Google Reader. And today I'm going to be talking primarily about Gmail. Now, a lot of our focus with Gmail is on fundamentals, making the service really fast and giving users access to their information from any device, from anywhere on the planet. And we've been working on some big things here, and I have a few new changes to show you guys today. Let's start with speed. Larry's always telling us that slow products never win, so we're fanatical about performance. We have JavaScript timers in all of our apps that tell us down to the millisecond how long each request takes. And for when we don't believe those, we actually have stopwatches on our desk. We sit there and time every request that we think is too slow. Now, when we wrote Gmail back in 2004, we coded it in a programming technique called Ajax. This was back before the term Ajax even existed. And we've learned a lot in those 3.5 years about how to build good, fast, large Ajax apps. And pretty soon, we're going to be rolling out a completely new JavaScript architecture for Gmail. No one has ever seen this before, but I'm going to show you guys a demo here today. So if you can pull up the left laptop, please. This is the new Gmail JavaScript architecture. You can see it looks exactly like Gmail does today, but under the hood, it's completely different. Now, as you guys use the web, you're used to clicking on links, waiting maybe a second, maybe even several seconds for a page to come back. But we think that's too long to wait if you're reading a lot of email. So the new version of Gmail actually prefetches all of the messages on the page so that when you click on them, they load instantly. You can see here. And then you can click next, 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 next. You can even hold this down and just watch all the mail go by. That's how fast we can make JavaScript applications today using the newest browser technology and the newest computer platforms. And this thing will really shine on like MacBook Pros, on the new version of Safari. That's going to be released soon. You'll really see more and more speed gains as you switch to these newer platforms. Now, speed isn't the only thing that's different about this new JavaScript implementation. As Jonathan pointed out, a lot of our focus is on building reusable infrastructure. So when you load the contact manager in this new version of Gmail, you'll actually get the same contact manager that you see in Google Docs and in Google Video. And when you compose a mail, you'll be using the same rich text editor that you see in Google Page Creator and Google Groups. The Gmail team didn't have to write any of this code. The architecture just let us put it into the product and reuse everything that they had already done. So you get the same experience everywhere you are in Google. Now, one of our other philosophies at Google in general, and in particular with Gmail, is that we should never hold users' data hostage. In the case of mail, that means you should be able to get your contacts and your mail from anywhere in the world and use it in any way you want to. And in the case of mail, we launched back in 2004 free POP access and auto forwarding for all of our users. POP access lets people download their mail onto devices like BlackBerries or into clients like Outlook. And forwarding lets them forward their mail to other services or other accounts. It even makes it easy for people to switch away from Gmail if that's what they want to do. Now, I see that a lot of you guys out there have BlackBerries, so you're used to this really nice feature where when you read your mail once, it's marked read on the server. So if you delete your mail on your BlackBerry, it's deleted on the server. The problem with POP is that it doesn't do this. You still have to read your mail twice. You have to mark it as read on your device and then mark it as read on the server, which is pretty irritating. There's another protocol called IMAP, which solves this problem. Now, it provides such a good user experience that a lot of webmail services, particularly those that rely on advertising for revenue, don't give this out to their users, and they don't give it out for free. But we think that's a trend worth breaking. So earlier this morning, we launched free IMAP for all of our users. And now when our users go into Gmail and go into their settings, they'll see not just forwarding and POP, but also IMAP. So they can get that same really killer BlackBerry experience on their iPhone, even in Outlook if they want to. As Jonathan mentioned, one of our other mantras here is features, not products. And Gmail is a really good place to make this happen because people use email for a lot of things. They use it for sharing vacation photos. They use it for coordinating events. They use it for collaborating on documents. And the experience here isn't always as good as it could be. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been on threads like this where you'll have a series of emails with slightly different versions of the same Microsoft Word attachment, and you'll have to, at the end, go through and merge all the changes into this one final version. We have a product here called Google Docs, which makes this work better. you just have one document online. Everyone can edit it in the same place. So we ran this experiment where we put this open as a Google document link next to all attachments in Gmail. People can click it, and it just opens the document right in Google Docs and gives you that one version that you can edit from everywhere. And it turned out that users really like this. So if you switch to the right laptop, you'll see the reaction. This is Google Docs traffic after we launched this feature. And we saw more than a doubling in the number of users that were going to the product. And while this is just sort of scratching the surface of what we can do, it shows how promising this direction is, that by integrating really useful functions from other products into a large product that a lot of people are using, we're actually able to give them a better experience and also introduce them to these new concepts that they aren't otherwise seeing. And this is the direction we're going to be heading in the future, where rather than having to come to Google and figure out which product you first want to use, you just come to Google, and based on your task, we automatically direct you to the best product for the purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. OK, next we have Rajan, who's going to talk to you about apps. Thank you. Good job.
Hi, my name is Rajan Sheth, and I'm product manager for Google Apps, which are collaboration products for businesses and organizations. I graduated from Stanford University and came to Google 3.5 years ago from VMware. And I actually remember the exact day that I decided I really wanted to come to Google. And that was actually when I got my first Gmail account. So I logged into Gmail for the first time, and the experience was amazing. And there were a couple of things that I noticed about it that were especially critical. So the first thing was that it was an incredible experience for email that I had never seen before. I had thought that email was a solved problem, but Google had managed to innovate on email and really build email from the ground up again for the connected and information-heavy world. And as a result of that, it was amazing for me to see that I could actually use email in a very different way than I was using it before. The second big thing was that it was a heck of a lot better than my corporate mail. And all of a sudden, I was able to see long threads in a much more digestible way, find information in a much easier way. My days of foldering mail and deleting mail were over. So I was realizing that the innovation in the consumer space was happening much, much quicker than the enterprise space. And so I was inspired to come to Google to help bring that train of innovation to enterprises and businesses. I've been driven by Eric's strategy about having apps as the third pillar of Google's strategy. And I want to share with you a few of the insights that we've picked up along the way and actually show you them with some of the new features we've had with some of our products. So the first trend is all about connectivity. How can we make these applications work really well using the fact that people are connected to each other and people are connected to the web while they're doing this? So take spreadsheets, for example. It used to be that innovation in spreadsheets was about the next great toolbar feature. But we believe that you can create a potentially even more powerful application by focusing on how people can collaborate with each other and how people can leverage the world's information when they do this. So here's an example here of a pharmaceutical industry dashboard. So what I've done here is put a very simple dashboard in place. And actually, the only thing that I've entered in here is the company name Bayer. So one of the things that I can do here is that actually I can do a Google search right from my spreadsheet and look up facts. So for example, for companies, I can look up the number of employees that they have. And this is actually a Google search pulling results in real time. I can look up the stock symbol as well. And so this is pulling in real time as well. Using Google Finance, I can actually look up the market cap. And using Google News, I can look up the latest headlines about Bayer. So let's say I go here and I want to actually go and add the PE ratio. So I can go here and add another column that's the PE ratio. And then all I have to do here is look it up in Google Finance and say that I want to look up the PE ratio for Bayer. And it puts it right there in its place. And you'll see, actually, these numbers will start to change over time because these are pulling in real time as well. So another thing is, I don't actually know the pharmaceutical industry very well, as most of you do. So I don't know what are some of the other competitors in this market that I should be tracking. One of the other things that the Google Spreadsheets team recently released is really autofill on steroids. So you think about autofill as a traditional feature where you take the number 1 and 2 and you can expand it to a list of 3, 4, 5, and 6. We actually autocomplete against a variety of sets that are out there on the internet. So for example, here, if I click here and then I drag, it actually shows me the various other companies that are there. And it completes against a variety of other sets that are there. So then I can actually go through here and drag across the various columns and drag this down and see real-time information about a variety of these companies and bring in more and more information about the industry in real time. The second insight I want to talk to you about is extensibility. So Google has certainly not cornered the market on extensibility or on innovation. And we want to make it such that our applications can be extended very easily. So here's an example for you. So I'm a movie buff, and I actually I always keep track of what are some of the new movies that are coming out. Well, so where I want to do that, though, is in my calendar. Because when I'm scheduling going to a movie, I want to schedule it right in my calendar where I can see everything else that's going on. So one of our developers, Ryan Boyd, actually thought about the same thing and quickly put together a feature using a new platform called Calendar Gadget. So it's using the same Gadget infrastructure we learned about in iGoogle, but essentially melding that with Calendar and allowing you to make very interesting mashups very quickly. So the way this works now is that if I go to my calendar here, I can see on particular days when particular movies are being released. So I can see that there's one coming out tonight, but I don't want to go there because, of course, the Rockies are playing in the World Series tonight. But then on Friday, I have an open slot here. So I'll go and I'll see right there in line what are some of the interesting movies that are happening. And so this one up here actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my calendar and schedule a date with my wife. This is how geeks ask each other out, by the way. So I'll put that on our joint calendar. So the last thing is community. So one last thing we found is that these applications work tremendously well when they're put into a community where people are sharing and collaborating and interacting. So when you have a variety of coworkers that you're interacting with, colleagues, fellow students, for example. And this has actually been the crux behind our enterprise strategy. And we've seen a lot of pull from a lot of organizations that really want, essentially, Google branded for their organization, but get that same train of innovation. So this is actually a video from Northwestern University. Northwestern is one of the first major university customers of Google Apps. And they've actually, they heard tremendous amount of feedback from their students that their students wanted Google Apps. They wanted Gmail. They wanted Calendar. They wanted Docs and Spreadsheets much more than they wanted the internal tools that the university was offering. So they created, through Google Apps, a branded version for Northwestern. And now all 14,000 of Northwestern's undergrads have access to Google Apps. And they created this video to trumpet to the world about the fact that they now have Google for Northwestern. So the last thing I want to talk to you about, the last trend, is really that these products are never finished. And Jonathan mentioned about how you need to iterate and iterate and iterate. And one of the things is that we have the luxury, because of cloud computing, that we can iterate in lockstep with the user's needs. And it's almost as if we're having a conversation with the end user as we're building these applications. Now, if you ask me where are these applications going to be in 3 years, I really don't know, but I'm pretty confident that our users are going to bring us to the right place. It's amazing to see where that conversation has taken us in the last 3 years, and I'm very excited to see where it's going to take us in the next 10 years. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Paul, who's going to talk about our developer efforts.
Thanks, Jonathan. So as Jonathan mentioned, my name is Paul McDonald. I'm a product manager here at Google. I've been working here about 4 years and recently graduated from the University of California at San Diego with a degree in computer science. Now, I want to talk to you about our developer program, but before we get to that, I want to start with a ritual that we do every single morning on the developer team. We call it the Developer Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone stands up, come on, stand up.
If you don't stand up, he won't continue.
Come on.
It's good for you. Sergey always has people stretch. It's good for you.
OK, right hand on your hearts. Follow after me. I pledge allegiance to the web, open protocols, packets, and markup, and to innovation for which it stands, one platform, under DOM, highly scriptable, with Ajax and access for all. So, of course, we don't actually say that every morning. But really, the things in this pledge are what we really believe in. We believe and are committed to one platform, and that platform is the web. Other companies are building walled gardens in which their developers work in. Google is building tools and APIs for the web and to make the web a better place for end users to work. We're committed to open protocols, open standards, and open source software. As we innovate in the open, we feel our developers will trust us more and build more products with Google tools and more sites with Google products on them. And we're doing this for everyone. So from the copy and paste scripters to the more sophisticated developers who are using our GData APIs to extend our products, to the professional developers using tools like Google Gears to change the way that their users are interacting with their software. Now, I want to talk about Google Gears for a minute because it's our latest innovation in this area. I want to show you a company called Zoho, which is a small company that does online documents and spreadsheets, and recently integrated Google Gears with their website so that you can actually access these documents and spreadsheets offline. That's what Google Gears does. It's an open source piece of software that enables third parties to develop applications that allow their end users to access the documents online or offline. So here's Zoho. Their Zoho Writer product is actually implemented with Google Gears. I can create a new document, put some text in here. You can see they have a go offline link here at the top. If I click that, I would actually go offline and can actually access that document without the use of an internet connection. So one thing that Jonathan always says is that everyone is a developer. And I truly believe that. Everyone is a developer. And Jonathan, today, you're going to prove it. I want you to create a web application for this group in 1 or 2 minutes. How's that sound? OK, so Jonathan's a little scared. But really, you can do it. It's pretty easy. I'll help you along.
This isn't a joke?
Come on. OK.
OK.
So Jonathan, if you click the Analyst Test tab there.
Right there.
Right. So this is a HTML page that I've created in Google Page Creator. It's just a template that we're going to fill in with some Google technologies. So the first thing we're going to do is add a Google map to this page so that you guys can figure out how to get here. And we're going to use the Google Maps API to do that. So if you click on the Google Maps tab, Jonathan.
I can do that.
OK, good. And type in Google into the search box. Great. So this finds all the Google offices in the United States. If you click on the first result there, that's our Mountain View office. And zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see the surrounding area. That's pretty good. OK. And then if you click on the link to this page at the top there.
That thing?
Yep. Now, that second box there is a way for you to actually embed that map into another page. So if you copy that, Control C. Good job. Back to the Analyst page. And then click in the box where it says find your way to the Google campus, and then edit HTML in the bottom right. Good. And then just paste it in there. Great. So we have a Google map in this page, and it'll show you when we publish it what that actually means. The next thing we're going to add is a gadget. Now, gadgets are the way that developers actually distribute their content on Google. Marissa always tells the story of the 12-year-old boy who created a Google gadget, and the next day had 30 million page views for that gadget. There's no other place on the internet that you can get that kind of distribution in such a short amount of time. So Jonathan, back to you. If you click on the Google stock price link there and then add gadget at the bottom. OK, now there's a finance tab on the left. Pretty easy so far. Click the stock chart. And then we're going to edit this to show the Google stock price. So change the title to Google.
Here?
Yep.
Google. I
Google.
can do that. Okay.
And then the ticker.
Goog.
Right. OK, good job. OK. Now, we're going to publish this application so that anyone can actually access this online.
That would be the publish button?
The publish button, you got it. You're way ahead of me. And then view on the web. So once this loads up, you'll see a Google map and the Google stock price gadget. Congratulations.
Can I go?
Yes, you can go now, Jonathan. Thank you very much. So you can see how even an old man like Jonathan Rosenberg can create a web application in just a few minutes using Google tools and APIs. And it's not just Jonathan. We're going after the long tail of developers. There's millions of them out there. And we believe that if we can get a piece of Google on every single website, we're making the web a better place. So that's it for our developer program, Jonathan.
OK, next we have Rami. You'll survive because you're bigger than I am. Good job.
That was very impressive, Jonathan. So hi, my name is Ronnie Betar. I'm an associate product manager at YouTube. I have an undergraduate degree in electrical and computer engineering from Cornell. I also have a double master's, one in computer engineering from UC Santa Barbara, and one in management science and engineering from Stanford University. I've been at Google since 2006 and recently joined the YouTube team post-acquisition about 8 months ago. So YouTube is the world's largest video community. And we want to be a platform that is everywhere you are, across the web, on your phones, and even in your living room. And because YouTube is a global property, we recently launched in Mexico, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. We know that YouTube is not just a local phenomena, it's an international phenomena. So we're very pleased with the overall healthy growth of the site. And in addition to acquiring new users, something we constantly think about at YouTube is how can we continue to keep users engaged on the site? We know that many of our users come to YouTube to passively explore content. So it's our job to surface the right content to you. So we frame this as a discovery problem. How can we create a serendipitous discovery experience on YouTube? Now, what exactly does this mean? Now, all of you have all had a serendipitous discovery experience. A friend recommends a video for you to watch or a movie to go to. Or perhaps you're walking down the streets of San Francisco and you see a pair of shoes at a storefront and you say, hey, I'd like to stop in and check out the price or see what those shoes are like. Well, as it turns out, we have so much watch data that we can mine at YouTube, we can actually observe the aggregate user behavior and recommend content to you. And that's precisely what we do with the related videos on YouTube. Let me show you what I mean. Can we get the right? So here's a video of an individual named Paul Potts. Now, what I want to highlight in this part of the screen is a video we're recommending of Pavarotti. Now, if you look closely at this video, you'll notice that there's actually, the term Pavarotti isn't associated with any of the metadata on that video. However, we at YouTube know that there's a strong association between those two videos. Now, if I play this video for you, what you'll notice is that the individual Paul Potts is actually performing a rendition of a song that Pavarotti also did. So it's likely that the users were actually trying to compare and contrast both performances. Now, something else that's interesting about this video is how did I actually discover this Paul Potts video to begin with? Well, it turns out I cheated. I was actually looking at the query logs, and suddenly Paul Potts was a top query term in the US and the UK. Now, at the time, I didn't realize that Paul Potts was actually the winner of the Britain's Got Talent contest, which was airing in both the US and the UK. But it did strike an interesting idea. What if we could try to predict which videos on YouTube were going to become viral before they actually became popular? So we set out to build a predictive model, and we used a part of the homepage as an experimental framework to actually test this hypothesis. So you'll notice these videos on the top of the screen here. It turns out that our users agreed. We were able to predictably improve the click-through rate on those videos by improving those algorithms. So in addition to algorithmic approaches to surfacing interesting content on YouTube, social discovery is also something we think a lot about. The idea being that you're more likely to be interested in content if you find it through an individual who has sort of like-minded interests. So a classic example of this is the more videos from this user. So if you see a video uploaded by a user, you'll sort of see what other videos they've also uploaded. Another example are playlists. So playlist is a form to allow users to actually compile interesting videos in a topic or a category and publish that for other users to view. But something else I'd like to highlight is an interesting product we call YouTube Streams. So the idea behind Streams was to recreate the TV living room experience. And what I mean by this is something we're all very familiar with. You're at home, you're in the living room, and you're socializing while you're watching TV. And so what I'm going to show you here is something which sort of tries to mimic that same experience. So at the top left-hand screen here is a video. And what you'll notice is that on the right-hand side over here is actually a chat room where I can actually message back and forth with other people also watching that video. And what's also interesting is that there's a search box down here where I can actually search for videos I think would also be cool and contribute that to the community. So it's a very interesting social experience. And finally, the last form of discovery I'd like to talk about is search. I mean, search has always been an important part of how users find video content on YouTube. But something interesting I'd like to highlight is that on YouTube, many users we found are actually using search similar to how they channel surf. So the behavior that we observe is that they'll enter a query on a specific topic, and then they'll start to paginate very deeply to sort of kind of just explore all the different content on the site. So in addition to investing in pure video search quality, we actually try to optimize for that passive browse experience. And of course, with all these page views and user engagements, which we're trying to optimize, renders tremendous monetization opportunities, which we'll talk about in a later panel. So with that, thank you very much.
OK. Thank you, Rami. Next, we have Aman, who's going to talk about maps.
Thank you. OK. Thanks, Jonathan. So I get to do the last show, I guess. Hi, I'm Aman Govil, and I graduated from Stanford University's grad program in management science and engineering last summer, and joined Google and joined the Geo team, prior to which I was a computer engineer. And when I joined the team, I started looking at the vision that really started exciting me. And it was geographically organized, all the world's information that we have. So if you think about what we're trying to do is, we're taking all the information that's available online and offline and put it on a map. This is a new way of browsing and consuming information in its geographical context. Now, when I started thinking about it, I was like, well, this is a big problem to solve for a handful of engineers and product people at Google. But as we went along, we figured out that it's not really that tough. What you need to do is build a base map, which is an accurate physical representation of the world, put the tools out to the people in the world who want to annotate that map, and then use all that content and expose it through search, which we seem to be doing well at. So we've made innovations in all of these spaces, and I'm going to start by showing you. Can we have the left? OK. By showing the base map. So a few years ago, we introduced this fluid motion based on Ajax. And then we introduced satellite imagery after acquiring Keyhole. And we've been making steady progress. And all of these have now become de facto. So the next innovation in this space was what we call Street View, which is high-resolution imagery of vehicles driving around the streets that give you what a street will look like when you get there. So as you can see, cool. And this is extremely high-resolution imagery. You can zoom around and pan stuff. But this really is a beginning of what we want to do. Then about 6 months ago, we launched a tool called My Maps, which allows people to start annotating on top of this in simple drag-and-drop manner. So here's a simple map of the 49-mile drive in San Francisco, created by somebody called Peter. And he's put some useful information that people can now find, which wasn't present in a map. So this is the most basic form of information that you can show. The next one is, of course, there's static data, there's dynamic data happening all around the world. Like, for example, I have here a weather feed from a company called WeatherBug, and from USGS, a feed of live earthquakes around the world. In fact, there was one in somewhere near Central California yesterday. So what you see is you can, dynamically looking at a map, you can find out what's happening around the world at any given point of time. So you can expand this to news, events, sports, and anything that you're interested in. So this builds on the same concepts that apply to the web. Take the content, put it in a feed. The next part of this was really about apps. And as you've heard today, gadgets and APIs and exposing all sorts of this. So we have two products. One is Google Maps API, which allows you to take this base map and embed on your website. And the second product, which I'm going to show here, is called Maplets, which is essentially geek speak for maps plus Java applets. You put them together, it's Maplets. And what it is a sort of a love child of Google Gadgets that you've seen all today. And Google Maps API allows you to create interactive applications and build functionality on top of Google Maps. So what I have here is by far the most popular maplet on Google. And it allows you to simply click and find distance between two places. So using this, I'm going to answer a question that has bothered the greatest thinkers of our time. Just how many football pitches can you fit between New York and San Francisco? There's your answer. So when you do get to New York, you're probably going to want to find some hotels. Oh. And at this point of time, most people go to orbitz.com or hotels or Kayak or whichever your favorite hotel website is. Instead, what we allow you to do is just bring that search here. So you can just turn on your Orbitz maplet, and you can do a search that you're looking for. Or you can turn on your hotels.com maplet, and it'll show you the results of that search. And then when you can compare prices and do all the good things that you can do. So there are lots of these maplets being created just like Gadgets, and they inherit all the benefits that you see in the Gadgets platform. They're extensible. You can disaggregate your content and your applications just from your website, and all the nice things there. So that's about how you annotate the world. The third piece in what I spoke earlier was about search. So think about it. There are 6.6 billion people in this world who are local experts about some area that they live in and have information to share. Now, when all that information starts coming on the web, how are we going to parse it? How are we going to expose it to users? That, again, becomes a search problem. So about 3 months ago, we rolled out in Google Maps something called Geo Search, which essentially is an index of KML and Geo RSS and all kinds of georeference content on the web, and allows you to find it on Google Maps and Google Earth. So recently, I was in Spain, and I was in Madrid on Sunday afternoon looking for stuff to do. So I fired in a query called just sightseeing in Madrid, as you can see here. Now, the point to note here is this is not normally a query that you would go into Google Maps or any other mapping application and type in. You'd probably go to google.com or your favorite search engine to do that. But what I found here was that, OK, I looked at the first result, and, well, this was exactly what I was looking for. It had been created by some a company called ticketswitch.com. It had all the places it was going to take and when the bus was going to leave and the number that he needed to call. And that's when it struck me that the GeoWeb that we spoke about earlier is actually right here and happening, and it's here to stay. And just to give you some facts, there are 50,000 websites that use Google Maps API and are built on top of it. And there are about 4 million maps that were created in the first 3 months after we launched the product. So you can imagine the rate at which this is going to grow. Now, that's so much for the demo. I'd like to leave you with 2 thoughts. One, we know local search is big, right? When you look at US, there are 25 million businesses in US, and that's about as much content is going to be there for local. But when you think about Geo Search, we need about 1.3 billion annotations just to cover the base map of US alone. So you can imagine there's more content to see, and there's more content to search for. So where the opportunity lies. And of course, with more search, is going to bring in more monetization opportunities. And if you still don't believe that GeoWeb is here, there's help at hand from Hollywood. Can I get the? So that's Angelina Jolie with the tattoo of the lat-long positions of her kids and where they were born. So there are more ways beyond Google Maps where you can express your geo content. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all the presenters. I'm almost speechless. These are the people I'm betting on and the people who I invest my time in. I hope after watching the demos that you just saw there, all of you guys feel likewise.